with young people and talk about the future we're building, and that's very much what we're doing as we all choose to move forward together.
Good morning, Abigail Beeman, Global News. What can you tell us about what happened last night and why there was an increased security presence?
My first concern was for the safety of my family and for all the Canadians in the room. This will not change at all how I campaign, but I'm not going to make any further comments on it. Ma priorité première était évidemment pour la sécurité de ma famille et des gens dans la salle. Ça ne va pas changer du tout la façon que je vais faire campagne dans la prochaine semaine, mais je ne pourrais pas faire plus de commentaires là-dessus.
Can you speak to how it felt personally to have to wear a bulletproof vest at the event?
You know what? This election is so important. The choice Canadians are facing is so important. And the importance of getting that connection with people, talking to people about the very, very clear choice they're facing between conservative cuts or a progressive government means that I am as motivated as I have ever been to get out and connect with people every chance I get so people really understand what is at stake in the choice in this election.
Good morning, Michelle Zilio with the Globe and Mail. Last night, your wife was supposed to be on the stage, but she never appeared. If the security concern was so great that you had to wear a protective vest and your wife didn't appear on stage, why didn't you just cancel the event for the safety of the 2,000 people there? My
priority was the safety of my family and the 2,000 people in the room. I took advice from the RCMP, worked with them, but I will not make any further comments on this incident.
And on a separate matter, the Conservatives have been running Facebook ads in Chinese, accusing the Liberals of wanting to legalize drugs. Can you clarify your position on this and comment on any concerns you have about misinformation on this issue? Thank you.
I think we've seen that the Conservative Party is continuing to mislead and even lie to Canadians because they cannot explain why they want to cut $53 billion from Canadians, 4 times as much as Doug Ford. So instead, they have to lie about our platform. I think it is reprehensible. We have been very clear. We will not be legalizing hard drugs. We will continue with the approach that we have that has been working on fighting this terrible opioid epidemic. But we will continue to be honest with Canadians about the choice they're facing between conservative cuts that would be 4 times greater than what Doug Ford has put forward, or continuing to move forward and invest in Canadians with a progressive government that is focused on them.
En français, sur les publicités.
Je pense que c'est vraiment désolant de voir que le Parti conservateur doit mentir aux Canadiens sur notre approche et notre plateforme. Nous n'allons pas procéder à la légalisation des drogues. C'est un mensonge et les conservateurs le savent bien. Mais ils doivent mentir aux Canadiens parce qu'ils ne peuvent pas parler, ils ne veulent pas parler des coupures qu'ils annoncent, de l'austérité qu'ils promettent. C'est pour ça que les Canadiens ont besoin d'un gouvernement progressiste et non de coupes conservatrices.
À propos de la sécurité renforcée hier, M. Trudeau, avez-vous l'impression que les publicités négatives à votre endroit, que le ton acrimonieux de vos adversaires, ultimement, ça peut représenter un risque pour votre sécurité? Est-ce que vous pensez qu'un peu de retenue serait souhaitable?
On comprend à quel point cette élection est importante pour les Canadiens. On est en train de voir la polarisation, la politique de peur, de négativité et de mensonges de la du Parti conservateur. Et nous allons continuer de démontrer un contraste positif entre ces coupures conservatrices et un gouvernement progressiste qui comprend à quel point il faut investir dans les gens, il faut investir dans nos jeunes, dans nos familles, il faut investir pour lutter contre les changements climatiques. Et effectivement, il y a une polarisation dans ces élections, mais ça rend encore plus clair le choix essentiel que les Canadiens doivent prendre. I think we are seeing an increase in polarization in election campaigns around the world, increased politics of fear, of negativity, and now, as we've seen from the Conservative Party, flat-out lies to Canadians. We need to make sure that we choose a positive vision for the country, and we are strong in our contrasts with our proposal to continue to invest in Canadians, invest in fighting climate change, invest in support for families, where the Conservatives are promising cuts 4 times bigger than what Doug Ford has inflicted on Ontario.
M. Trudeau, la campagne, les intentions de vote sont très, très serrées. Hier, on a vu M. Rodriguez sortir une paire de ciseaux géants. M. Chrétien a fait une sortie. Aujourd'hui, vous êtes avec le président des Raptors. Vous faites 5 circonscriptions aujourd'hui en mode défensif. Ma question, est-ce qu'on est en train de paniquer dans le camp libéral?
Au contraire, on continue de faire campagne à travers le pays. Je suis très excité d'aller dans plusieurs circonscriptions aujourd'hui, demain et pour le reste de la semaine pour parler de ce choix essentiel que les Canadiens doivent faire. Est-ce qu'on choisit des coupes conservatrices ou est-ce qu'on choisit un gouvernement progressiste?
There's all manner of conspiracy theories circulating today, baseless, about last night's security incident. I'm wondering what extent do you hold that polarization you just referred to as being responsible for creating that environment where that kind of discussion is okay?
I think we are seeing, unfortunately, an extremely high level of misinformation, of disinformation online, and people who are really trying to further polarize and make fearful Canadians. The reality is the Conservative Party is continuing to spread falsehoods to Canadians to try and scare them into voting for them or against us. And I don't think that has its place in Canada. We need to continue to make strong contrasts with the competing visions of this country. And we know from the Conservatives' platform, which they finally released late on a Friday night of a long weekend, near the end of the election campaign, that they plan on cutting $53 billion worth of investments in Canadians. And that choice is very, very clear for Canadians right now. Do we give in to the polarization and the fear and the division and the misinformation being spread online? Or do we continue to move forward, pushing back against conservative cuts and choose a progressive government that's going to continue investing in people and continue fighting climate change? Okay. Nous reconnaissons que ces élections sont extrêmement polarisées, particulièrement parce que sur les sites Internet et par la désinformation et la mésinformation partagée par le Parti conservateur, les gens sont affectés par cette négativité. Mais le choix est extrêmement clair. Ou bien on continue en avant avec un gouvernement progressiste, ou on retourne en arrière avec un gouvernement conservateur qui va faire des coupes.
Mr. Scheer's made some very personal attacks against you. He's called you a liar, a fraud, a fake feminist. His campaign put out a press release, also baseless, with suggesting some malfeasance on your part. Do you think that kind of language from Mr. Scheer puts you at your safety at risk? I mean, does that encourage the kind of things that could lead to security problems?
But you see, this is the thing that the Conservative Party of Canada does now, but not just now. The very day after I won the Liberal leadership, they launched massive personal attack ads against me. They feel that personal attacks and lying to Canadians is the only way they can get elected because they know their platform is promising cuts and austerities that will hurt Canadians. So the choice is very clear. Do we continue with a progressive government or do we double down on conservatives and accept conservative cuts? Okay. C'est ce qu'on voit de ce parti conservateur moderne. Des attaques personnelles. C'est rien de nouveau. La première journée après que j'ai gagné le leadership du Parti libéral, il y a bien des années, j'ai été accueilli par des attaques personnelles sans précédent du Parti conservateur. C'est comme ça qu'ils agissent ces jours-ci, parce qu'ils ne peuvent pas proposer une vision positive d'investir dans les gens, ils ne proposent que des coupures et de l'austérité. Et ça devient extrêmement clair quand un gouvernement doit essayer de mentir, quand un parti doit essayer de mentir auprès des Canadiens pour se faire élire, plutôt que de leur partager leur vraie vision pour les gens, Le choix des Canadiens est encore plus clair. Est-ce qu'on accepte les coupures conservatrices ou est-ce qu'on va en avant avec un gouvernement progressiste?
Joanna Smith, the Canadian Press. When you were in Montreal, there was someone trying to throw eggs at you, and that was coming from the perspective of someone who thought you weren't doing enough on climate change. We know now that Greta Thunberg will be heading out to Alberta shortly. Do you have any concerns for her safety out there?
I think I am concerned in general with the polarization that we've seen in this election. We have seen this in our friends and allied countries around the world, where increased divisive discourses, misinformation, deliberate misleading of electors has led to some very toxic elections. But I have tremendous faith in Canadians. I know from coast to coast to coast, people are gathered together with their families to reflect on the kind of future they want to build. They're thinking about what's in store for their kids, what opportunities are there for the next generations, how we're going to fight climate change, how we're going to pull together and make sure that everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed. And the choice people are facing is a very simple one. Do we continue with a progressive government, or do we go backwards to conservative cuts? Those are the conversations people are having, and the kind of misinformation and personal attacks that the Conservatives are putting out there is not something that Canadians are going to fall for.
Thinking of some of those conversations around the Thanksgiving table, I'm just wondering, do you think, because this might come up, do you think Canada is a racist country?
I think there are many, many Canadians who face systemic discrimination every single day. And that's why I have pledged myself and my government to continue to fight against racism, fight against intolerance, and fight for inclusion.
Hi, Mr. Trudeau, Tom Perry with CBC. I just want to be clear, are you, in a sense, blaming the Conservative Party and their attacks on you for what happened last night?
No. I think it's very clear that that there is a general polarization right now that various parties have contributed to over the past months, and more specifically over the past days. But the decisions around last night, and my concern for the safety of my family and for the people in the room, were based on that particular event.
Can I ask you as well that I know that this is elections about policy, the parties have their platforms out, but in some ways it sort of seems to be coming down as a referendum on you. And how do you feel about that? That for many people this is not about policy, but it's about whether or not they like you.
Andrew Scheer wants to make this election about me. This election is not about me. This election is about Canadians and the choice that they have to make about how we move forward. And the choice is very clear. Do we move forward with conservative cuts, or do we keep with a progressive government that's going to invest in Canadians and fight climate change? Okay. Monsieur Scheer veut essayer de faire croire aux gens que cette élection est à propos de moi. Cette élection est à propos des Canadiens et du choix qu'eux, ils vont faire sur est-ce qu'on accepte des coupures conservatrices ou est-ce qu'on continue avec un gouvernement progressiste.
I'd like to talk about your sharpened attacks in the speech. Last night you mentioned the NDP for one of the first times. How much of that is a bit of desperation on your party's part as you kind of see them eating into your support?
I think it's very clear that Canadians are worried about what a conservative government would do. And people need a progressive government, not a progressive opposition. And the opportunity to make those choices is what we're going to be talking about over this coming week.
What do you say to those who say, though, this is a typical Liberal attack, sort of when you see the vote starting to split on the progressive side?
I think we've seen what happens in places like Ontario. You know, the NDP wasn't able to stop Doug Ford. The NDP wasn't able to stop Stephen Harper. If you want to stop conservative cuts, you have to elect a progressive government, not a progressive opposition.
Last question.
Okay. Nous reconnaissons que si on veut continuer d'avancer et investir dans les Canadiens et lutter contre les changements climatiques, il faut élire un gouvernement progressiste. Le NPD n'a pas pu empêcher Stephen Harper de se faire réélire plusieurs fois. Le NPD n'a pas pu empêcher Doug Ford de se faire élire et d'imposer des coupures sur les Canadiens. Et au Québec, on a besoin de Québécois pour défendre des valeurs québécoises au gouvernement et pas dans l'opposition. C'est quand le Bloc était fort à Ottawa que Stephen Harper a pu se retirer du protocole de Kyoto. Il a pu couper dans les arts et la culture, malgré une forte présence du Bloc. Pour élire un gouvernement progressiste, il faut choisir un gouvernement progressiste.
Last question, dernière question. Do you accept that the toxic rhetoric is right across the political spectrum? And if so, would you urge your supporters to dial back that rhetoric?
I think one of the things that we're seeing is even though we have a very, very positive plan to continue to invest in Canadians, we've shared over the past number of weeks in sharing our full platform and continuing on the approach that has worked to lift almost 900,000 Canadians out of poverty and seen Canadians create over 1 million new jobs, most of them full-time. There is a divisiveness in this election that I think Canadians are noticing and reflecting on. And the choice is, do we give in to the misinformation and fear, like unfortunately so many of our neighbors and allies around the world have given into in their political discourses? Or do we stay true to who we are and make a choice based on building a better future for our kids and grandkids? Over the past 4 years, those are the investments we've made, and we're going to continue. And that choice is the choice facing Canadians. Do we go for conservative cuts, or do we elect a progressive government?
Incitement to violence is almost commonplace online. Is there a role for government to take further action?
We have committed to move forward on the Christchurch Declaration, in which governments and internet companies have agreed to stand strongly against terrorism online. And we have also committed to looking carefully at what we can do to move forward in a way that will both protect free speech, which is extremely important, but also ensure that Canadians online are safe from toxic intimidation and threats of violence. This is something that Canadians expect. The rules that apply in the public sphere should also apply in the virtual sphere, and the way we move forward on that will require careful analysis and thought and working with a broad range of partners. But I know Canadians expect to be safe when they're online as well. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you all.